Welcome to the 3 Degrees of Freedom podcast, where we explore lifestyle engineering with our expert guests to bring you in alignment with your own 3 degrees of freedom, location, time, and financial independence. This time on the show, we've got Dan Schwartz with us. How are you, Dan?
Derek, great to be here, man. I'm great.
Awesome. So for those who don't know Dan, you're going to get to know him pretty well the next half an hour to 45 minutes, because Dan is the founder of the 80/20 Investor Academy, a community and educational platform that helps real estate investors and entrepreneurs scale their businesses while achieving greater freedom and leverage through systems and teams. Dan's expertise lies in his superpower, which is diagnosing root cause issues in businesses and quickly fixing them with a systems-based approach. So you are definitely a man of my own heart, Dan. It's awesome. With over a decade of experience in the real estate industry, Dan's helped thousands of investors get a grip on their leads to close more deals through his investor CRM, Investor Fuse. And he's passionate about empowering entrepreneurs to achieve their goals by eliminating inefficiencies and creating sustainable, scalable systems. Dan, it is awesome to have you on the show, dude. I am ready to just tear into it. Are you?
Yeah, everybody listening, get out a pen and a pad. There's going to be a lot of good little gems that hopefully you can implement right away. And we're not just talking like big, high level, vague stuff that doesn't really matter or apply to you right now. So let's do it.
100%. All right. So before we jump in fully into systems and processes, let's learn a little bit about you as a person. And in general, more about like where you are in the 3 degrees of freedom. As we talk about location independence, time independence, and financial independence, can you tell us where you are in each one of those and which ones you want to try to expand more into these days?
Yeah. So time is the one that as I tap into new revenue streams, I tend to be more involved until I figure out a way to systemize it and bring other people into it so I can buy back my time and use my time at higher leverage, higher dollar per hour type of work. Right now, I'm like in the throes of scaling out this education company, and I find myself very busy and on calls all the time. The time factor is going to be the first thing I work on. Location independence. I work from home. My wife and I travel a lot, so we got that down pat. And I spent a good chunk of my 20s living abroad in Europe and in Southeast Asia and doing the digital nomad thing. Actually, when I launched Investor Fuse in 2016, I went to Vietnam, where I stayed for 2 months in Ho Chi Minh City, and then went to Thailand and then did Europe. And so I'm no stranger to that. All of this, much like you, Derek, was influenced by the 4-hour work week. So that was like the aha moment where it's, oh, the new rich.
Yeah,
like location and time are the new measures of wealth, and not just money or like income or how big your salary is.
100%. And I don't think that he's ever going to listen to this, but a shout out to Tim Ferriss for everything
Shout
that
out
he's
Tim.
done. Yeah, absolutely. Totally influential and 100% couldn't agree more. It was that book plus Rich Dad Poor Dad that really gave me a lot of my like inspiration for the lifestyle that I'm doing. So anyway, awesome, dude. It looks like we're pretty much two sides of the same coin. So let's go ahead and jump right in, man. Can you tell us a little bit about why you named your venture the 80/20 Investor Academy? How did you come up with this idea also?
Yeah, so 80/20, 20% of your input produces 80% of the output. This has been probably like one of the most quoted or like most referenced principles in the business world, at least, because it applies really well to allocation of time and allocation of capital. So 20% of your time will produce 80% of your desired result, or 20% of your ad spend will produce 80% of your leads. Or it's a law of nature that you see all over the planet, from wealth distribution allocations to like how like road traffic, like 20% of the roads have 80% of the traffic, like 20% of your veins in your body have 80% of the blood or something, like, or arteries. There's all these little things that have maybe not an exact 80/20 like ratio, but it's all about a small amount that has a disproportionate effect on the whole system. And I got obsessed with this. Perry Marshall was the guy that turned me on to this concept. Perry Marshall wrote the book 80/20 Sales and Marketing, which had there was an analogy in there that got me thinking. It was like, if you have 100 clients, 20% of them are going to give you 80% of your revenue. And then of that 20%, there's another 80/20 in that, where it's 20% of the 20% will give 80% of that desired result. Basically, there's a small set, 5% of those 100 clients, 5 of those clients will pay 10 times more than the other 80%, just due to this breakdown. And think about that. And it's also, he talks about the example of just like why Starbucks sells high-end coffee makers in their store, because they know that 1% of the people that walk in there are going to buy like this high-end thing. And it's this huge profit maximizer for Starbucks that you would never know. In this law, I just got obsessed with it because there's probably a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this that you grind, you hustle, but you're also lazy. And the reason you're grinding and hustling is so you don't have to grind and hustle all the time.
Yeah.
You'll do whatever you can to just chill and have income coming in so you could do what you want. And that is me to a T. I am obsessed with leverage. And the 80/20 principle is the preeminent law of leverage, and it can be applied to everything in life. And if I had a tattoo, it would be like 80/20. So I love the concept. It's really a way to think. It's really the mental model that I return to most frequently. When I think of a problem, I try to think of the root cause of that issue. What is the 80/20 of it? It's part of my language. It's part of how my team and I communicate to each other. Just like, how can we 80/20 this problem? And the way you do it is you go right to the source of the problem. And a lot of the times the source of the problem is your mindset, your strategy could be off, or the way you're doing your strategy is off. Or it could be avoidance, right? You're just not doing the thing that you should be doing, which is funny. Sometimes the 20% is the hardest thing to do. Picking up the phone and having that hard conversation could be the 20%. And people shy away from that 20% because it's hard. But you get successful by getting really good at that and knowing when to jump right to that and having that hard conversation, or making that cut in your life or your process, or doing that research, or sitting down and building out that process diagram so you can train someone else to do it. Like all this dirty systems work, that's high leverage activity. And if I'm speaking over your head right now, that's okay. This is important for you to try to figure out, because the highest leverage work you can do is not working in your business, it's working on your business. And that's the central thesis to my work right now.
Yeah, I love this. Everything that you're saying is 100% what I can resonate with this 100%, because I look to build processes every single time. And as a matter of fact, I do this so actively and so readily, Dan, that sometimes I will spend so much time building a system or process before I even know that it's something that needs to be repeatable. Like I will jump to, for instance, with this podcast that we're doing, the very first thing that I did before I knew that it was going to even be something that I wanted to scale up, I built a system so that when people enter their information in Google Forms, it goes into Google Sheets. And then once it's inside of Google Sheets, there's a API interface with ChatGPT, basically, so that things get automatically populated from Google Forms, from Google into Google Sheets. And then I have a Zap watching a certain cell, right? And once it gets updated, then it pulls a question in and creates. So I have all these automations set up. Anyway, that's just an example.
Beautiful.
But
don't confuse automation with systemization, though.
100% agree. Yeah, 100%. On that same vein, though, how sometimes the whole idea of automation and building systems is rooted in awareness or mindset, like you said, right? So
yeah,
do you have any tools for people who maybe just know that they have to automate something in their business, and they know that they want leverage, but they don't know what to tackle or how to even think about it? Do you have any advice for people who are looking for that type of thing?
Yeah. First of all, if you don't have a proven revenue model, there's nothing to systemize. So step one, prove it out. And that takes manual, like the startup mode. It's hard to systemize something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So if you are new to the real estate business or really any business, like get 5 customers on your own in whatever way you can. Typically, the way to do it is to have conversations, right? That's an easy thing to
Always.
track. You have 30 conversations, 5 of them close into a deal. What's your average take per deal? How much did it cost you to get that deal? Whatever, you track these things. And then the method that you use to have those conversations then becomes the thing that you can systemize. But you have to figure out what that thing is first. Otherwise, we're spending all this time creating all these systems. And imagine having an idea for a product, building out all of that product, spending $1 million to design that software, build out all the automations and all the flow and all the onboarding, creating your marketing and your branding, but not having any conversations with people that will actually pay you. And
Yeah.
you launch this product and nothing happens. It sounds like a silly idea in hindsight, right? But I freaking did that like many times early in my career.
Yeah.
I got so glued into, oh, I got to systemize this. I'm going to build this whole thing out. People are going to love it. No, figure out the thing that will produce the result, then track it, and then hire someone that can execute that process and track their work and get good at coaching them to success on that thing. For instance, what's the popular where people are getting deals now? SMS, right? You send out 1,200 text messages a day, 50 people reply. Of those 50 people, you get 3 appointments. Great. Now you have a proven process that will work, that pretty much works the same way every single time, regardless of that conversation, right? And you can have a process and a script for that you can train someone, and you can measure how many texts did you send, how many of those people replied, how many replies of those replies, like how many people actually were qualified. Did you do a good job eliciting motivation out of that person? Did you do a good job of building trust with that person to get them to the point of their call? And you just get good at that one little thing. But all this is to say is you need to find the thing that actually produces the result that will get you to the income. And if you are confused about what that is, just think about your business as a funnel, where it's like opportunities come into the top, they get qualified, they get pitched, and then they turn into monetization, or in real estate, it's the dispo process. If you're wholesaling, you're buying and holding, and you're installing a property manager, or you're rehabbing it and you're doing all that. Think of your funnel. And if you are just starting out, I would work at the top of the funnel and work your way down. If you are already in business and you already have a proven model and you already want to start systemizing it, I would actually work from the bottom up. So I would start with your disposition. Then I would look at your acquisitions process. And now we have a machine that we can dump leads in without stuff falling through the cracks. Most people do it in reverse. They think they need to systemize their lead generation first, but I don't know. We listen to people's sales calls all the time that think that they have a leads problem, and their sales calls are way off the mark. They are not asking the right questions. They are coming off as rude. They're coming off as too nice. They are not eliciting motivation and building rapport properly. They're making offers that are not multifaceted. They're not doing it visually. They're doing it verbally. There's all these things that are going wrong, yet they think that they have a leads problem. And this is one of those like 80-20 things where it's, typically I can have a conversation with someone and I know right away if it's a leads problem or a sales problem. 90% of the time it's a sales problem. It's just the way that they're monetizing these opportunities is wrong. And that's just some spitballing, some brainstorming for you guys to see the truth of the situation. If you don't have a proven model, don't even worry about systemization. Just use this as an educational lesson. If you already have something that's working, use this interview to figure out how to enhance that by documenting it, tracking it, and then putting someone else in place to run that process while you just look at their stats every single week and coach them to get better and compare themselves to the week before. That's it. That's building a system. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive. And I love the fact that you started with make sure you build a pipeline of something that works before you start automating it, because it seems like very basic advice. And I think it's something that applies to a certain subset of our listeners who really want to automate and systematize things and want to be thought through and make sure they catch everything. But I love that you got to get through this messy middle, right? Where you're starting with a business problem and you got to figure it out, right? That's what entrepreneurship is. And once you figure out something where you have some level of success, that's when you can have some proof that will pay for a system. Because let's be straight here, not all systems cost money, but most of them do. And the best ones take a little bit of money and time and energy to set up. And so you don't want to make that investment until you find something that works really well. So I love that.
Yeah.
I wanted to also touch on this too. This is a big question that I've always been moving back and forth on. Software versus people. There's a place for both, right? And systems is like the intersection between both of those. It can involve a person or sometimes it doesn't, especially now in the age of AI, right? What is your take on having a big team versus having lots of SOPs and lots of processes? Like, how do you know how to walk that line? I know there's a lot to consider here and we're probably maybe overcomplicating this, but I just want to hear your thoughts on how to think about which one to pursue with a specific problem.
It's 80-20. Right. So 20% of your processes are going to have 80% of the importance to you.
The leverage.
In the leverage. So in real estate investing, your acquisitions process, if you don't have a proven and repeatable way to get contracts or get opportunities to buy or flip, that is your 80-20 right there. And so just start there. Like, you don't need to have your whole business documented and systemized and SOPized. It's the 80-20 principle applies even to systemization itself. Like, you really get good at that, and then you can zoom in. So what is a system really? It's just a starting point and an end point. And if you just wrote, like, how do you get from here to here with little squares, then that's a workflow diagram, right? It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. And then maybe the workflow diagram has some, if the seller is qualified, do this. If they're not qualified, do this, right? And you just, how do we get to lead is answered to appointment is set? Just map it out. And it takes like 30 minutes to map it out. Or if you're in a program, the one I have, we already have some of these that you can swap in to your existing process, train your team on it. But really, that's all it is, inputs and outputs. And you don't have to have a super systemized, hyper systemized operation. It really just needs to be, you just need to have it dialed in for the things that create the most leverage, which is deal flow, which is the sales process itself. And then once you have that in, then you can get really good at team and scaling and actually starting to replace and upgrade your dollar per hour, which is like freeing yourself of all the sub $100 hour activities and bringing on the right people, like leads managers, executive assistants, dispo managers, transaction coordinators, things like that, to keep you working on the business all the time and just running the machine. Now, when it comes to the software play in with the team, so software is a part of the process. It's not meant to replace team. So basically every department of your business is going to have a tool that serves as like the train tracks for your team to run on. So a CRM is a good example for a lead manager, for instance. The CRM is like the train tracks for the leads manager's day-to-day operation. And the best CRMs will have the process baked into the CRM, where the lead managers wake up, they open up their CRM, and it just shows them what they're supposed to do at any given moment. The automation and everything else happens behind the scenes. So technology can serve as the guide rails to the process. But in terms of the execution itself, that's where team comes into play. The team is going to run the execution and create the result using the software as a way to minimize human error and to minimize the need for human input, ideally.
Yes.
That's how I think of it. It's just train tracks to execution.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to put it, because the way that I think about it is that you're giving these software tools to your team members to help augment what they do.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
in business, right, at least in the business that we're both in, you got to find something that you're really good at and specialize in that one thing, and then hire out the pieces that other people are good at that has a need in your business. And then that way, that one person is doing their talent, their skill, the thing that they like to do, and it's easy for them to do. And you're pretty much building a dashboard around them or providing them with information to help them do their job better, right? You're allowing them to
Hmm.
split test some certain things if you need to. For instance, for if it's sales, you're split testing, or if it's lead generation, you're doing different copy, you're testing which platform to go on, and you have the metrics in front of you so you can adjust and tweak. So you're providing
Yeah.
information and allowing information to flow easier so that your team can do their job better. That's
Yeah.
the way, that's how I looked at it. And I just came to that realization once listening to you talk. So I appreciate that
Yeah,
insight.
exactly. It's like you have two ways of doing things. One way is you doing the task. So let's
Yeah.
say it's you doing all the cold calling. So that's one reality, is where you just do everything. You're using the tool, you're just doing all of the work to make the calls, you're logging all the results of the calls, you're
Yeah.
updating the information, you're making the calls, updating the CRM, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's one reality. The other reality is, in order for you to get out of that role, but still have it happen, you need three things. One, you need the actual documentation for how to do that thing, the step-by-step checklist, plus a process map that kind of shows how to do it. And with AI, you can actually create SOPs in like 10 minutes now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I did this the other day. I don't know how I didn't come up with this sooner, but this is all you have to do. You turn on the camera and record yourself doing the thing on Loom, is the tool I use, Loom. Then you upload that video into a tool called Descript, and Descript creates a transcription of all the words that you said. And then you tell GPT, I want you to create a standard operating procedure that includes a purpose statement, the steps of execution, and a definition of done that summarizes the output using the following transcription from a video I shot.
Mm-hmm.
Paste the transcription, click enter. There's your SOP. So that's step one. So now I have a documented process for how I did that. It took me 15 minutes without having to do any extra work. I'm just doing the thing I'm already doing when I just turn the camera on. So that's easy. No added time, NAD. Then you have to have someone execute it. That's step two, is hire the person to execute the documentation that you just provided. And then step three is the technology. So having the tools, and the tools can be a script, the documentation itself, the software program itself, the KPI scorecard or whatever you're using to track it, like all of the tools necessary to do it. So once you have those three things in place, you go from you doing it to you not doing it, and the thing will happen just as well or better than you were doing it before.
Right.
Which chances are you were doing it reactively and randomly and not consistently. And now that someone else is only doing that and they have it dialed in and tracked and measured and using software, now it can be done consistently. And all you need to do is just coach that person to success by comparing their performance week after week and see what the trends are in the outputs.
Yep. Yep. And the idea would be that it's in a place where it's very easy for you to check those metrics and they can check the metrics. So the visibility is 100% crystal clear. Now, I love Descript. One thing I wanted to give as an alternate tool is you can use otter.ai, which we're using right now on this call to record. It provides an outline directly in the software interface, and then you can use that for ChatGPT. But I love the fact that you can use your transcript from what you're talking about in Descript and then drop it into ChatGPT. The caveat that I would say with that particular workflow is that you need to have whoever it is that's stepping in for you to do that, they need to go in and quality check what ChatGPT will give, because as of right now, it's not exactly perfect, and there's some things that it may leave out or is vague. And so you do need that human element, but dude, 20% of the work will get you 80% of the effort. just like you said. And I think
Exactly.
that that's exactly how we've been doing our SOPs over the last 2 years. And it's been a complete game changer. So 100%, man. I love that we're thinking on the same page here with that. All right.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
what I want to talk about now is your gift here is examining root cause issues. Can you help identify, like in the 80/20 Academy, Investor Academy, and in conversations in general, what would you say is the most commonly occurring problem that can be diagnosed and fixed that comes up? And no pressure here if you can't come up with anything, but I'm just curious, like what you keep seeing over and over again as a common root cause.
Yeah. So I'll go high level and then I'll zoom in.
Yeah,
80/20 is all about fractals, where
sure.
you zoom in
Yep.
and the 20% of the 20% of the 20%.
Uh-huh. Yep.
High level, it's as simple as this. You're the founder of the business, yet you are also your own employee.
Mm-hmm.
And you are doing the lead management, you're doing the sales calls, you're updating the CRM, you're figuring out how to do the marketing, you're doing all the bookkeeping, you're doing the payroll, you're figuring out how to pull comps, run the leads, talk to the leads, follow up with the leads, figuring out the dispo, making hires, interviewing people, blah, 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 blah. You're doing every aspect of your business. I call this person brute force Bob. And it's the intuitive way that we as humans know how to execute something, largely because we went to school and that's how they taught us to do things. It's just to attack and do the things and not really think about how to do things that might necessarily get us out of doing the things. And the crazy part is, even if this sounds like you, if you're brute force Bob, then exactly what I'm talking about. You're on this podcast because you're looking for more things to add to your plate, which is like the
That's
definition
so
of
true.
insanity,
That's
right?
so
You're already juggling all these things, half-assing everything, yet you're still logging on to webinars, signing up for things, thinking that like there's another shiny object, gold nugget that's going to cure everything. And the problem is, that's the problem. Like that method of operating your business will not get you to the next level. It didn't get any successful person to that level. You can make $1 million for sure, just hustling your ass off and doing everything at a half-ass level. However, if you want to become wealthy and you want to achieve the 3 degrees of freedom, you have to shift your identity from brute force Bob to 80/20 Adam, or 80/20 Amy for the ladies listening. 80/20 Adam has a completely different mindset to operating his business, because instead of the tactic or the deal of the day being his obsession, the whole business is the product to him. You see your business as the product, and you realize that if you don't start to hire people, then you're always going to be the one left holding the bag, and you're always just going to be an employee of your own operation. Learning leverage and learning to think 80/20 means that you're constantly building systems for other people to do their job well, so that eventually you can just spend your time working on the business. And what that means is you get good at a different skill set from working in the business. You get good at hiring operators, building systems, root cause analysis and strategic thinking, and networking. Those are like the on the business things, and management and leadership. When you get really good at that, you've earned the right to then go above the business, which is like even bigger thinking, where it's, instead of trying to figure out how to do a deal, a real estate deal, you're trying to figure out how to allocate capital and invest into existing operations of income. And that's like business investing. And Warren Buffett, like that's Warren Buffett. He
Yep.
works above the business. So that's
And then
the transformation.
I was going to also say too, and then also finding the people. When you're at this level, you're at a position where you're procuring talent to plug into
Yeah.
your business as it scales. Because a company that has 5 people has different problems than a company that's got even 10 or 20 people. That's
Yeah.
just the way it is. Like you have
Right.
to start having HR, you got to start filing different taxes. Now you're talking with different investors. And so as you grow throughout the business, you as the individual generally, at least when you're starting out, have to do everything. Like you have to be the pioneer in all these new areas first.
Yeah.
until you can eventually find a COO or something to start doing that for you. And then that's at the point where you can really start scaling. But let's be honest, you and I are at this point right now where we have to at least do something in this new endeavor and then plug a talented person in to that spot or expand someone's role to be able to cover that for us if we want scale in that one area. And so
Yeah.
I just love that you talked about changing your mindset from going from an individual contributor to being someone who builds things, right? And creates
Yeah.
workflows.
You can't exactly. You have to build. You can't just constantly just be putting out fires all day and expect that you're going to build stuff in between the
100%.
fires.
So good. Yeah, so good. Okay. So let's talk about advice for creating teams. It's clear that you have a team. I remember when we first met, there was one of your team members that was also on the call with me, which is a very smart move. I love how you did that. And I may try to do that as well going forward. How do you advise people who are maybe looking for their first or second or third hire? Maybe they've got a virtual assistant and then you're looking to bring someone on as either a partner, a co-owner, or maybe even a W-2 employee. What advice do you have for people who are they have an established sales process and it's too much work for them to handle on their own, and they need some help with vision and operations and stuff like that? What advice do you have for people who are looking to build from that point forward?
Yeah. Are we talking real estate investors or any entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think let's try to touch on both. Maybe we'll start broad with entrepreneurs and then go to real estate.
Okay. So starting broad with entrepreneurs, you need to do a time audit. And we do this exercise called the Freedom Focuser, which is you're just basically on a spreadsheet logging all of the types of activities that you do and then rating them on this scale between 1 and 4. 1 being, I hate doing this thing. It gives me no joy and I'm not good at it. 2 being, this is an obligation. I'm okay at it, but I don't enjoy it. 3, I actually like doing this, but I don't love it. I like doing it. I don't love it. That's just like work. And then 4, I absolutely love doing this. This gives me energy. I want to do more of this. And it has high leverage and impact. And you rate. And then basically what you're doing is what is the task that takes up the most of your time that is a 1, 2, or 3? And then you're sorting by how much time, being the one that has the most time consumption is the one that you're going to outsource first. You just figure out, of that laundry list of things that you're doing as brute force Bob, what are the things that you don't enjoy doing that take up the most time? That becomes your job role for who you're going to hire. Now, there's a mindset with hiring that you need to understand, and it's that don't throw people at a problem expecting it to solve the problem. That's the first thing. The second thing is that there are people out there that love doing the stuff that you hate. It's the ultimate gift of humanity.
Yeah.
The fact that humans can complement each other and build things and execute things on a very wide scope of personality differences. And the thing that you actually hate to do that takes up all your time, someone else can do it 6 times better, and it fuels them and it gives them energy and it serves their ideal life. And so understanding that truth will set you free, because then you can just go and bring that person into your world and give them an opportunity to do what they love. And so it's a mindset thing. If you've hired someone before and it didn't work out, don't use that as an excuse not to do it again in the future, because there's a right way to hire someone. There's a right way to train someone and a right way to manage someone. And I think when you hire that first person, let's say it's a VA that's, doing some admin stuff that you're not good at, tracking stuff or data input typically are things that entrepreneurs don't like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then what you want to do is, instead of what I call transactional leadership, you want to focus on transformational leadership. And this is another mindset thing, is you don't need to be Steve Jobs to hire someone. You don't need to be some charismatic leader personality type. You can be dorky, nerdy, behind the scenes, computer analytical person and still be a great leader, just being yourself. And how you do that is you don't lead from charisma. And of course, it helps to have a little bit of charisma, but you lead through what I call transformational leadership. So transactional leadership is you just give people a task to do, and then you check to see if they did it. And then if they did it wrong, you yell at them. And if they did it, you say, great, here's the next thing. Just transactional. Do this, I'll check. And then based on if they did it right or wrong, we'll decide what's next. That's micromanagement. That will take you down a path of sorrow and despair.
Yeah, no one wants to do that. Put yourself in your assistant's shoes. Like that's, yeah, I know where you're going with this, but yeah, please keep going. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really important because I wish someone told me this from the get-go. With a little bit of extra effort, you can get the most out of other people and they'll actually enjoy it. And it's just through shifting the style from transactional to transformational, which is as simple as getting really clear on the outcome that this person is to deliver. Getting super clear on the outcome means that there is a very clear end result that this person is responsible for. They know where in the organization that they fit. They know how their impact is felt. They know what happens right before they're involved. They know what happens right after they're involved. And they're very clear on what their job role is. They have all the tools to support them. That's step one to be a transformational leader. Step two is that you're actually measuring their work. And this is something that you can't just lead from intuition. You have to lead through metrics. And this is like an 80-20 atom. Like brute force Bob will just execute willy-nilly, and 80-20 atom will execute by the numbers. Everything you do, even like an executive assistant has numbers. Like how many emails do I have in my inbox every morning is something that we track. And she's in charge of making sure that it's as minimal as possible. How many projects have been completed this week? Everything has a number, especially with the real estate business. Like how many leads came in, how many were qualified, how many offers did you make, how many got accepted? Boom, they're your main KPIs right there. And so the last point though is to coach people to success by tracking their number. How do you coach people? You ask them questions. You don't ask them, why didn't you hit that number? You ask them, what is your process for doing this right now? Let's dig in and see if we can make it better. Instead of why didn't you hit that number? It's what is your thought process in designing this process to get to this point? And you ask questions on these weekly calls where you're looking at your numbers, and maybe you're hitting your numbers 3 weeks in a row. Maybe you got to raise your targets a little bit in that case. Or we're way off the mark 3 weeks in a row, in which case we got to dig in and coach them to fix that and use their 80-20 muscles to zoom in and fix the process and get an edge. Instead of giving up and going to some other strategy, you're coaching them just to look at the numbers and just to get better at the thing that will produce the result. That's a completely different style of leadership. And that's the one that's going to make you really wealthy. And I would train your team how to think that way too when they start to hire people. I could go off and on for another hour on this topic, but it's important.
Yeah, no, this is great. And I think the one point that I want to make, you just went in and covered it, is that I think by allowing the people that are working with you, and I hate to say working for you, because usually you're working with someone. That's the way that I think about it.
Totally. I never feel like a boss.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. I think what we're doing is we're trying to work together as a venture, and we have a common goal of achieving our objectives. And you as a leader need to set those objectives in order to satisfy, what the business's purpose and vision is. And that's why we're working together as a team. So there's that mindset there too. I think that the other piece is, and you touched on this, is that you should empower the people that are working with you to solve problems, right? That gives accountability. Yes. It makes their work interesting, because if you give them a whole bunch of manual entry, right, and you tell them, I want it done this way, and they're basically just manually entering things, what if you gave them the ability to make this faster and easier, and they found a way to do it with a macro in Google Sheets or in Excel, right? Or they found a software that's $5 a month or something that will help make their position, if they're paying them $7 or $8 an hour, right, that will help leverage their time, so that instead of spending $7 or $8 an hour, you're spending $5 a month to help reduce the time they spend by half or more than that. That's the idea, right? Is that empowering so that you give the accountability to the people you're working with. The solution and the accountability are all together as a team when you think
Yes.
that way. So I just love it, man. I love what you're
But
saying.
what happens though when you're the leader and you're constantly jumping in to do this stuff instead because the other people are doing it wrong? What do you think that does for your team morale?
Oh yeah, the morale is terrible. Yeah.
They're gonna think, first of all, they're gonna think that one, you don't trust them to execute it.
Mm-hmm.
Two, they're gonna always rely on you to come in and jump in and execute it, which kind of defeats the purpose of them being on your team to begin with.
Yeah.
And three, it's gonna always belittle everybody else in your team because they're never going to be able to execute it as well as you. That's not true. Sorry, they will be able to execute as well as you, but not if you don't give them enough rope to actually do it.
Sure.
And so there's this concept called an accidental diminisher from this book, The Multipliers, which is a really good book. I highly recommend it. For instance, if you are like the rescuer, there's like 6 types of accidental diminishers. You like are always trying to go in and create guardrails for people so they don't make mistakes. Then they're going to become dependent on you, which will weaken them.
Yeah.
And then there's like the idea guy, the entrepreneur that's constantly coming up with new ideas to fix stuff and like all this stuff. You're going to overwhelm your team, who will either shut down or spend more time chasing the new idea than they were completing the old idea. And so there's all these intention things that managers will do that actually hurt their team and diminish what is possible, and like really just allowing them to make mistakes and coaching them on not making mistakes again in the future is a much better way to do it. I failed to mention that I went on a 2-month sabbatical last year after I got married.
Heck yeah, man. That's awesome. First of all, congratulations on your nuptials. But yeah, that's great, man, because that's exactly what happened with Tim Ferriss. Bible number 1 for me.
Yes.
When he went to England or something and he thought his business would fall apart, it actually thrived. And so I just love that you took some time away. Now, Dan, dude, we could go on for forever. And I wish that we could, because it seems like we have so much in common. And I really want to continue this conversation outside of the podcast. But what I want to do now is I want to head into the final part of our show, which is the rapid round. It's the same 6 questions that we ask every one of our guests, and they're meant to be answered in quick succession. So about less than 30 seconds each. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and do that. Are you ready?
Sweet. Yep. I didn't prepare, so let's do this.
No, that always makes for the best ones. Number 1, name any resource that was or is essential in your journey to pursue your 3 degrees of freedom. I love the thoughtfulness here.
Yeah, I keep thinking Who Not How, the book.
Yeah, amazing book. Everything that Dan Sullivan writes is incredible. But I know exactly why you're saying that. Also, the freedom multipliers exercise that you talked about, like putting your stuff, putting how you want to spend your time. I saw that with another group that my wife is a part of, and I'm getting the feeling that it's out there also, which is really cool too, but probably not in that book. But yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2, if you woke up and your entire business was gone and you only had $500, a laptop, place to live, and some food, what would you do first to rebuild?
Oh man, that's all you need, dude. Man, I would get on Facebook and I would make a post saying there's 2 ways to run your business. You can do it the way that you're doing it now that's not working really well, and there's another way that involves thinking in a leveraged way where you're building an operation around other people and the ideal lifestyle that you want. I can give you the tools to do that, but it's going to take some effort and investment. Type below if you want to have a conversation. And then I would get on these calls and I would like really work with these people to build a plan for how they can create the income and the freedom that they want with their business, whether it's investing or whatever they're doing. And then I would pitch them, hey, maybe if you haven't worked with anyone before, then you can say, hey, let me work with you. Just pay me like a 3K down or whatever it is. And then a percentage of the performance. If I help you get another 20K a month or something, I want X percentage of that. And I'll go all in and I'll help you and I'll just figure out how to help that person. That's how I would do it. I would have conversations, figure out how people need help, and I would use your skills to help them problem solve and get what they want. Sometimes people just need a third party to talk to about their business because a lot of people feel like they're suffering in silence. Give someone an
Yep.
opportunity to not do that.
There's a real power in listening. And I just love that your response is basically leverage your talent, what you have, and get it out there and find a creative way to solve a problem for other people.
And
Awesome,
if you
man.
don't have it, if you don't have a talent, then exactly find a creative way and be honest about that. Say, hey, I've never done PPC before, but I promise you that you don't have to pay me unless I get work done and I actually create results for you. It's a great way to do it.
Brilliant.
Work, work for free, performance based. That's how you will make money. And I didn't even spend $500 to do that. That's just my food money.
Amazing. Number 3, what does your self-reflection and goal setting practice look like?
Yeah. So I set goals based on lifestyle. I very rarely make income goals personally. I do make them in my business.
Same here. Yep.
But it's more so, what is the ideal lifestyle vision for my wife and I? And then I reverse engineer based on that. For instance, if I want to spend all my day on the beach, then I won't have a business that requires me to be on Zoom by sitting behind my desk all day. But I don't really want to be on the beach all day because sand is annoying. But I do like to have conversations with people and like,
yeah, no, of course. All I got to say is that sitting by the beach gets old because I've done that.
Yeah. Right? I've actually tried to work with my laptop on the beach. It is not as cool as the pictures.
It doesn't work. Yeah, absolutely. Reading a book though, or listening to an audiobook. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
All right. Number 4, what are the core work habits you have that you attribute mostly to your success nowadays?
Work habits. I know that I inherently will do whatever's on my calendar. My best work habit is to put my priorities on my calendar first for the week, and everything else will work around that. If I want to, there's a quote that's show me your calendar and you'll show me your priorities. If you say you want to work out, show me your calendar. You have to be intentional about this stuff. If you want to spend more time with your significant other, put the date night on the calendar. And so I think living and dying based on my calendar, and people want to book in time with me, it's going to be in between my priorities. It's not going to supersede my priorities.
Yeah.
It's called the ideal week, right? Put down what are all the ingredients for an ideal week, bake it into your calendar, and then use a tool like Calendly that will read your available slots so that other people can book in between your priorities and not hijack your week and your priorities.
Bingo. Yeah, it's huge, man. I love it. All right. Number 5, what books or book do you recommend for people to jumpstart their success? I think we already touched on that in number 1, but maybe you want to mention another one.
Yeah. Who Not How, $100 Million Offers. Alex Hormozy is another really good one about creating offers and creating a sales process that like will get people to pay you a lot of money. And premium pricing, I think, is important. Don't try to sell stuff for cheap. Figure out how you can sell stuff for the most, because you'll have better clients and it'll be faster for you to hit your goals.
More commitment as well, like higher quality people who are more committed. Love it. All right. Last
and
question.
And that also speaks to like hiring. Don't skimp on paying people. Pay people as much as you can, because you're going to attract amazing talent. And if you can see the ROI in that talent, a salesperson will make you $2 million extra. So it might be worth it to pay them $250K, right? It's a very easy trade-off.
Brilliant.
Best investments you can make.
Last question I have for you today. What tool or process has become one of your most important time, money, or energy saving ninja magic tricks that you use every day?
So I use a tool called Newsfeed Eradicator on Facebook that blocks the newsfeed, so I don't have to go
Yes.
into that vortex. I highly recommend it. It's a Chrome extension and it replaces your newsfeed with a motivational quote.
Dude, that's awesome. Love it. Love it. All right. Hey, Dan, this has been incredible. And we're at the top of the hour here. And I just want to thank you for all of your incredible advice. And I know that there's maybe something going to happen later on, hopefully a collaboration or something, because man, we think a lot alike. And I just love the way that you're looking at things. And I think in many ways, you're a couple of steps ahead of me, myself as well. And so I just admire everything that you bring to the table. And for people who want to learn more about you, how can they find out about what you got going on and what do you want to share with the audience?
Yeah. So I run a program called the 80/20 Investor Academy. We show you how to create a scalable real estate acquisitions engine that can ultimately function without you. So if that's interesting to you, then go to join8020.com and we can just dig in and really, if you work with us or not, at least I can get you some focus and clarity to see what your next step is going to be. And I have a free group as well called Scaling Real Estate Investors. We do weekly live trainings for free. Myself and my head coach, Eric B., who is an absolute rock star when it comes to getting deals closed. Just go to scalingrei.com to join the free Facebook group. And if you want to chat with me, it's join8020.com.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been an amazing podcast, and I'm pretty sure that the audience has at least taken a page of notes from you and your wisdom here. I love it.
I hope you implement it. I know the habit to do everything yourself is very strong, but the habit is something that you can fix and you can hijack. Absolutely. And you can create a better habit towards systemization and leverage.
Yes, 100%. So listeners, thank you guys for listening all the way to the end of the podcast. Please, wherever you're watching or listening to this, please like, subscribe, comment. We really appreciate the engagement because then it helps get amazing people like Dan coming on the show and attract amazing people like you as listeners to come in and listen and be able to take action on all this incredible content. So Dan, thank you again for coming on the show, dude. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Derek, and keep it up. I love this podcast.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next week.